I don't know what everyone was so scared about with that Smaug guy. I just walked in, took a coin, walked out, everything was fine. Alright, can we talk about this?
Come now, don't be shy.
Take your coin! The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug is the second part of this Hobbit trilogy, and you basically just pick up where you left off at the end of Unexpected Journey and you follow these dwarves and Bilbo and Gandalf, and they're all going to the mountain now, so that's essentially what it is. They find Smaug and I'll talk about Smaug in a bit. Going into this movie, I was very excited. I really enjoyed the first Hobbit movie. I own it. I watched it a few days ago. It's still very enjoyable. And the trailers for this one looked great. I was very excited about the addition of Smaug, and Benedict Cumberbatch voicing him was great. So I wanted to see that. I was hoping that Smaug would be a great villain. And let me just say, this is going to be a spoiler review, and what I mean by that is, I'm going to start a spoiler review after I go over like general thoughts about the movie. So if you want my general thoughts without spoilers, it's this part, and the next part of this video will be spoiler filled, so that's how this is gonna go. And coming out of this movie, I loved The Desolation of Smaug for the most part. I had some problems. I had a big problem, which I will have to discuss in the spoiler review, but nevertheless, this movie I thought was great for the most part. The acting, all the characters, the same people that return from the first movie, they all do their jobs just as well as they did the first time. I still love Thorin Oakenshield, he's a great character. What I really want to talk about is some of the additions to the movie. They brought back Legolas, and Orlando Bloom plays him pretty well. They added this character called Tauriel, who I don't think was in the books. I thought she was a really interesting character. She added a good dynamic for the movie, even though a plot line of hers felt a little bit shoehorned in there. And there's this guy named Bard, who was played by Luke Evans. I thought he was a great addition to the movie. He was a really cool character. He had an interesting backstory, and he was just a badass character. And Benedict Cumberbatch's Smaug was just great. As soon as they got to that part of the movie, I just got so excited, and it was just great to watch. Smaug is a great character, and he's like, he taunts the dwarves and Bilbo. That's what I liked. He's a villain. He's huge. He's this fire-breathing dragon who can talk, so he's obviously smart. And he's just taunting these guys while they're running through the dwarf kingdom. It was really cool to watch. The action in the movie is great. This movie has a ton of action, much more than the first one, I think. There's that scene in the trailer you saw with all the barrels going down the river. That lasted a good amount of time, and it was really enjoyable. It was a fun scene. There's the scene where they fight spiders in the forest. I don't want to go into every single action sequence, but all the action in the movie is really well done. It's really enjoyable. There's no shaky cam. A lot of the action is actually filmed, like, really widely, so you can see everything that's going on. There's a couple moments, like, where there's hand-to-hand combat fights, like when the elves are, fighting orcs. It was a little bit shaky and up close, but other than that, the action was really fun to watch. The CGI, however, I have a little bit of an issue with, because, like, Smaug, he looked fantastic, and most of the CGI looked great overall, but some of the shots did look, like, really cartoony or unfinished, and I just feel like that's because they use so much CGI in these movies now. Because when you use CGI to at least a minimum and you balance it out with practical effects, you can make it look better, or you can focus on the CGI and make it look better. But when you have so much of this movie being CGI, I feel like they just can't put enough time into every single little detail, and that's why some of it ends up looking not as good as the rest of the movie. There really wasn't a dull moment in this movie. It slows down a bit towards the second half of the movie, because they settle into one spot for a while, but it didn't feel like it was dragging or anything like that. I was still interested in what was going on, and the movie itself is just really enjoyable. Now I'm gonna have to go into spoilers, and I'm not gonna go straight into the things I didn't like, but I am going into spoilers now, so if you don't want to be spoiled and you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this. So let's get started. The flashback at the beginning of the movie I thought was fine. I didn't understand the purpose it served, because it was just kind of there. But once the movie starts to get going, they interacted with that Beorn guy for a few minutes. Once again, I feel like that was just, okay, let's just get going now. And then as soon as they get to the forest, from that part on, I felt like the movie really picked up and just never stopped from then. The spider sequence was awesome, especially once Bilbo started putting on the ring and you could hear the spiders talking. That was eerie and creepy. And once they got to the Elf Kingdom, it looked beautiful. I loved seeing the interior of it and how their prisons were shaped, I guess, and where the king sat. That was just awesome. And the king himself, the acting was good, and I really can't say much about the character because you just see him for a few minutes. He seems like a guy that will probably play some sort of a part in the third one. I feel like we haven't seen the last of him. Then you have the escape and the barrel sequence, which is awesome when the orcs attack too, so it's all converging at once. That was a great scene. But once they meet Bard was an awesome character because just the fact that he was actually helping them, that added to it. But like his backstory and how his ancestors could have stopped Smaug, but then they missed, or apparently they did hit him, but he didn't die. I feel like Bard is 100,000% gonna be the one to kill Smaug in the next one, because he has the arrow and they have the arrow cannon there and Smaug's flying to Lake Town and he has the weakness under his stomach now, so that's pretty much all those things add together to Smaug is going to die via Bard shooting him with a giant arrow. And let's talk about Smaug now, because once they figure out how to get inside the mountain, even though after they almost give up for a second, Bilbo finds the keyhole, goes inside, and God, that sequence with Smaug, I don't know if people thought it went on for too long or anything like that, but I thought that I could have just watched 2 hours of them talking, because that sequence was just so intense, because Smaug is just, he's hunting him, and it doesn't even take him that long to figure out where Bilbo is, even though he has the ring on. Somehow he just kind of knocks the ring off of Bilbo. I don't know how that worked, but he got that, and he just starts taunting Bilbo and walking around, and not really walking, but slithering around while Bilbo's trying to get that Arkenstone. That's just so cool. Smaug was a great villain, even though he didn't have a ton of screen time. He just basically was in the final third or so of the movie. He was just so menacing. Every time, like, you actually saw his face, and that was great. And the final sequence, once the dwarves also enter and they're running around the Dwarf Kingdom from Smaug, how they were trying to plan and they were running across different bridges to try and confuse him, that was awesome. And look, let's talk about the ending now. Because after they pour the gold on Smaug, I knew he wasn't dead, that just wasn't gonna happen. But here's what I thought going into the movie. I thought that they were going to end it with Smaug dying, because I kind of knew, like, it's not that I have read spoilers or anything, but Smaug's the villain. He's gonna die. And the third one is gonna focus on this war or something. I think I read, like, the War of Five Kings. No, not that, that's Game of Thrones, but War of something. And this one, I felt like it should have ended with Smaug's death, because here's what's gonna happen now, that he is alive at the end of this movie. And by the way they cut the end of this movie just pissed me off. You cut it at the climax of the movie. That, not only is that irritating, but that deflates all of the intensity that you're going to have with it. Because now you're gonna start the next movie with Smaug just flying to Lake Town and destroying it. All the intensity that you built up for this movie is now done. It's deflated. It's gone because you have to wait a whole year for it. That does not make sense to me in any way. Because Smaug is now gonna die in like the first 20 minutes of the movie, because he's gonna attack Lake Town, he's gonna get shot in the stomach, and he's gonna be dead. And then we're gonna have that war thing, which is fine. But I just feel like if this movie had ended with Smaug dying and then having a clear-cut ending like that, it would have been better, because cliffhangers are not necessarily a bad thing, but cliffhangers on TV shows, they happen a lot, and those are fine, because you have like the next week to wait for it, unless it's Breaking Bad and you have to wait a whole year to figure out what Hank's gonna do on the toilet. Nevertheless, you should not, even then, you're cutting in the middle of the climax of the movie. That just, I don't get it. I've thought about it. Like, people could say, oh yeah, it's a cliffhanger, it leaves you wanting more. If Smaug had died, and they teased like the war that's coming, I would have still been excited. I would have been excited anyway, because it's a Hobbit movie, and that's like the only thing that I had a huge problem with besides some of the CGI shots. Like the CGI gold, by the way, when they poured it on Smaug, that gold looked awful. I'm sorry, but CGI gold just never looks good. It didn't look good in like Cowboys and Aliens, it doesn't look good here. I had no problems with like the pacing of the movie. I thought it worked really well. I never felt it was dragging or moving too fast. I felt it was perfectly moving at the right pace. The action direction was great, the acting was very good, but just that ending, it pisses me off. I don't get it. I don't know why they thought that would be a good idea to end it in the climax of the second movie. But, you know, I guess they have a plan, and we have to wait a year to figure out the end of the plan. I don't even understand how I'm supposed to grade this now, because it just feels like I have to wait for the other one to be able to grade this, because it's like those things are just all together. But, you know, as it stands right now, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug is a very enjoyable movie up until the last 3 seconds. And that's even true, like, even the line Smaug was saying, like, I am death, that was awesome. I was getting really pumped up. I was like, yes, let's see him destroy Lake Town. I am death. Pfft, no, wait till next year. It's like, fuck you. I think I've ranted about that for like 5 minutes now. I don't know how long it is on the video, but we'll see. Hobbit Desolation of Smaug, I'm going to give it an A-, because I still really had a great time with the movie, but just that, and I'm not even gonna go into the ending again. So what'd you guys think of The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Anything spoiler-filled you want to talk about? Write me in the comments down there and tell me what you think. Tell me what you thought about the ending. Tell me I'm wrong. Someone probably will. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button down there, because if you don't, Smaug's gonna kill me and take my coin.